The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps missiles are locked, loaded, and battle-ready as Iran delivers a chilling new warning to its enemies. Mojtaba Khamenei holds a high-level briefing with Iran's military chief as Tehran threatens a surprise new warfare strategy. Will catch the enemy completely off guard. Iran's army throws an open challenge straight at American President Donald Trump. The top-level military meeting comes just days after Iran showcased its mysterious dolphins and other never-seen-before warfare tactics. The head of Iran's Armed Forces Unified Command, Ali Abdollahi, met Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei for high-level security briefing in Tehran, Iranian media reported. Khamenei used the meeting to issue new guiding measures to the military leadership, outlining how to pursue ongoing and future military operations and how to firmly confront Iran's adversaries. These directives included instructions on the conduct of operations against enemies and on strengthening Iran's posture against perceived threats from the United States and Israel. Abdullahi said after the meeting that Iran's armed forces are ready to confront any action by the American-Zionist enemies, warning that any error by them would draw a swift, severe and decisive response. Major General Abdullahi said in this report that the units of the Islamic fighters, in terms of combat morale, defensive and offensive readiness, strategic plans, and the equipment and weapons required to confront the hostile actions of the American and Zionist enemies, are at a high level of preparedness. And in the event of any strategic miscalculation, aggression, or attack by them, they will respond swiftly, forcefully, and with great power. Major General Abdullahi, on behalf of the units of the Islamic fighters and the armed forces, assured the Supreme Commander-in-Chief that, with full obedience to His Excellency's orders, they will defend the ideals of the Islamic Revolution, our beloved land of Iran, the sovereignty and national interests, and the proud and courageous people of Iran, until the last drop of blood and until their final breath, and will make the malicious, spiteful, and aggressor enemies regret their evil and aggressive intentions. Iran warned that any new attack would be met with surprising new warfare, signaling that it is preparing unconventional responses for future confrontations. Army spokesman Brigadier General Amir Reza Akraminia said Tehran is working on new types of warfare, hinting at evolving tactics and capabilities without giving technical details. He added that future conflicts may expand into new domains beyond what Iran's adversaries currently expect, suggesting operations could go beyond traditional land, air, and sea battles. Akraminia claimed Iran could catch its adversaries off guard in future battles, implying surprise methods or weapons could be used if hostilities resume. He also warned that countries backing sanctions on Iran may face difficulties crossing the Strait of Hormuz, underlining Tehran's leverage over this key choke point for global oil shipments. Today as well, we warn the enemy that if they once again resort to aggression and once again become afflicted with a miscalculation, in the way that they were in the past and now in fact are enduring and paying for the price of those past mistakes, if the enemy once again becomes afflicted with a miscalculation and resorts to aggression against our country, they will certainly face other surprising options. These options, in addition to being the determination and will of our colleagues and comrades in the armed forces, will be more advanced equipment and renewed and new methods of war, and perhaps most importantly of all, new arenas of war. Meaning that the war will enter an arena that the enemy did not predict. The enemy did not achieve any of their predetermined objectives. They were defeated in this war. Why? Because fundamentally modern wars are analyzed based on the degree of achievement of objectives. Which side in the war was victorious and which side was defeated, although now in many places it is also analyzed relatively, and perhaps one cannot speak absolutely, but whether absolutely or relatively, if we examine it, considering that the enemy did not reach any of its predetermined objectives, it faced decisive defeat and failure. These comments came as Iran's navy confirmed the deployment of light submarines inside the Strait of Hormuz, describing them as part of its frontline deterrent. Navy Chief Rear Admiral Shahram Irani said the submarines are on standby for missions based on assessed threat levels, and can be activated as tensions rise. He disclosed that the subs were used during an operation launched in response to the attack on the Iranian warship IRIS Dena in and around the Hormuz approaches. According to Irani, the submarines carried out formation maneuvers during that mission and then submerged again to continue their patrol and surveillance tasks. Irani's remark came just days after U.S. War Secretary Pete Hegseth publicly dismissed reports that Iran possesses kamikaze dolphins, an allegation that has circulated in Western media coverage of the Hormuz standoff.
Any follow-on effort, if there are mines identified, would be something that some of our units could undertake or the world could undertake. But right now we know we have a lane of safe passage that commercial shipping can flow through.
Iran's IRGC has issued a sharp warning against any attacks on the nation's oil tankers or commercial vessels, framing them as a red line in the ongoing standoff with the United States. Tehran threatened that any fresh strike on Iranian shipping would trigger a heavy attack on U.S. military bases and allied warships operating in the region. The IRGC Aerospace Force added that its missiles and drones have already locked onto designated targets, according to a statement carried by Press TV. Brigadier General Said Majid Musavi, a senior IRGC commander, said Iranian forces are now waiting for the final order to fire, emphasizing that the weapons are pre-targeted and ready. The senior commander described the U.S. military buildup around the Gulf as a direct provocation against Iran, arguing that it is designed to coerce rather than stabilize the region. Iran said the warning sends a crystal-clear message that Tehran will not tolerate any further aggression against its maritime or energy infrastructure. The threat followed a series of confrontations near the port of Jask after U.S. forces targeted Iranian ships and tankers engaged in regional transit. Iran claimed that the IRGC Navy responded with a precise and overwhelming counter-operation, intended to reverse the impact of the U.S. strikes. The alleged response reportedly included anti-ship ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and high-explosive drones deployed against tracked vessels and support assets. Iranian media claimed that the strikes forced U.S. warships to retreat from the area in disarray, portraying the engagement as a tactical setback for Washington. Tehran also accused Washington of threatening regional maritime security and key shipping lanes, arguing that U.S. operations create the main source of instability in the Gulf. The IRGC added that only sea corridors authorized by Iran are considered safe for transit through the Strait of Hormuz, insisting that vessels must comply with Tehran's controls. Iran warned that any foreign force making a hostile move in the designated maritime zone would face immediate confrontation, leaving no room for ambiguity in its stance. Meanwhile, Donald Trump responded with a series of cryptic posts on Truth Social, hinting at future military steps and raising fears that the exchange could trigger further escalation. Iran's new threats came as Trump said he might restart Project Freedom in the Strait of Hormuz, suggesting a return to his plan to guide stranded ships through the waterway.
We may go back to Project Freedom if things don't happen, but should it be Project Freedom Plus, meaning Project Freedom Plus other...
Donald Trump has announced the launch of Project Freedom, a U.S.-led initiative aimed at helping dozens of merchant ships stranded in and around the Strait of Hormuz, starting from May 4th. Trump described the operation as a humanitarian gesture, intended to assist neutral country vessels and their crews caught in the war zone, many of which are running low on supplies while waiting for safe passage. However, U.S. officials later clarified to outlets such as the Wall Street Journal that Project Freedom would not involve direct naval escorts in the way his initial remarks implied. Instead, the White House outlined the creation of a maritime coordination cell that will identify and share safe routes through the strait, clear of mines and high-risk areas, while coordinating with commercial shipping lines and allied navies. This signals a more limited, advisory role for the U.S. military than the image of warships physically shepherding tankers through the choke point that Trump's announcement initially suggested. Subsequently, Trump announced he was halting Project Freedom just 36 hours after its launch, citing progress in negotiations and pressure from regional allies. As President Donald Trump publicly pushed for peace negotiations with Iran, U.S. military forces opened fire on an Iran-flagged tanker in the Gulf of Oman. The United States said the vessel was attempting to reach an Iranian port in violation of the ongoing maritime blockade in the region. U.S. Central Command confirmed the incident in an official statement released on May 6, detailing the military confrontation at sea. According to CENTCOM, a U.S. fighter jet fired several rounds at the unloaded Iranian-flagged tanker, ultimately disabling the vessel during the operation.